The spreadsheet is still open on your laptop when the email arrives. Not a trading spreadsheet, a budget one. The kind where you've color-coded the cells red and orange because the numbers stopped being green 14 months ago. The email is from a firm called Apex Capital Desk, and the subject line says, "Congratulations, your evaluation has been reviewed. You don't remember applying, then you do. 3 in the morning, 6 weeks ago, $150 fee you told yourself was the last one, charged to a card that had $211 on it at the time." You open the email standing up, still in your coat. The number in the first paragraph is $1,000,000. You sit down. The rules arrive in a PDF 47 pages long. You read all 47 in one sitting. Maximum drawdown 5%. Daily loss limit $4,200. Profit target $10,000 before your first payout. And a clause on page 31 that says the firm can terminate the account at its discretion with 2 business days notice. You read that clause twice. You tell yourself it's standard. You move on. Some decisions make themselves. Your first week is not what you expected. You expected to feel powerful, $1 million behind your name, and instead what you feel is a vertiginous caution, like standing at the edge of something tall. You trade small. 2 contracts, sometimes 1. You watch S&P futures open every morning at 9:30, and you wait, the way you've practiced waiting, the way 3 years of blowing personal accounts taught you to wait, and you don't move until the setup is exactly right. By Friday, you're up $340. It's not enough. It's also everything. The second week, you find the pattern. It isn't complicated. It's never complicated when it works. That's the thing nobody tells you. A specific confluence of a volume shelf, a 15-minute fair value gap, and a news catalyst already priced in. When all 3 align, you enter. When you enter right, you're in profit within 4 minutes. When you're in profit within 4 minutes, you move the stop to break even, and then the trade either works or it doesn't, and either way, you don't lose. You run it four times in week 2. It works 3 times. The loss is $180 because you sized correctly and your stop was where it was supposed to be. You close the laptop, make coffee, come back, and the number is green. You don't call anyone because there's no one to call who would understand what this number means. By the end of week 3, you're up $3,100, 1/3 of the way to payout. The first real cost comes on a Tuesday. You've been watching crude oil futures for 2 days. The setup is there, or close enough to there, that you can argue yourself into believing it's there, which is different, though it doesn't feel different at 8:47 in the morning with the market 43 minutes from open and your hands already moving. You take the trade. You size up, not double, just 50% larger than normal, because the setup is good, because you've been patient, because patience deserves reward, because this is how the math works when you finally start trusting yourself. The trade goes against you immediately, not slowly. It gaps. Something about a pipeline, something that wasn't on any calendar you checked, and crude drops 41 cents in 11 seconds, and your position is down $1,500 before your hand finds the mouse. You close it. You sit with $1,500 gone for a long time. It's not close to the daily limit. You're still up on the week. Objectively, in every measurable way, this is fine. You take another trade 90 minutes later, which you told yourself you wouldn't do after a loss. It loses $420. You close the laptop. You leave the apartment. You walk 14 blocks in a direction you don't usually walk and find yourself in a coffee shop you've never been in before. You sit there for an hour and a half and you do not think about trading. That is what you tell yourself. But somewhere in that hour, you run through the sequence 8 times. The entry, the sizing, the gap, the exit, and you find the thing you did wrong. The thing you did wrong is small enough to file away as a lesson and not a flaw. That's the word you use, lesson. You go home. You open the journal you keep for this purpose. It has 43 entries. 31 of them are lessons. Week 6, you hit $7, $400 profit, and start thinking about the payout like it's already real. You've done the math 17 times. 20% fee, $5,920 net on a $10,000 draw. The number still feels like proof of something. You don't examine it too closely. The rule you bend in week 6 is small. Barely a rule, more a guideline you set for yourself in the cautious early weeks. No trades in the last 30 minutes before close, because volatility spikes and spreads widen and risk-reward degrades. On a Thursday at 3:38 p.m., there is a trade so clean it looks like it was placed there for you to find. High volume rejection off a daily resistance level, clean structure, quiet afternoon. You take it. It works. $640 in 11 minutes. You don't write it in the journal. Not because you're hiding it, because there's nothing to document. It worked. The logic was sound. The guideline was a guideline, not a rule. This is a sentence you'll come back to later, in a different context, with different numbers. and it will mean something different then. Right now, it just means $640. The month 2 payout processes on a Wednesday. $5. 920 lands in your checking account, the same one where the cells used to be red. You don't open the spreadsheet. You sit in front of the confirmation screen longer than makes sense, then close the browser tab, make dinner, eat it standing at the kitchen counter, and do not celebrate in any way you could describe to someone else. You tried once, in week 3, to explain this to your brother on a Sunday call. Halfway through the explanation, you heard yourself saying, funded account and prop firm and sniper entries, and you heard the silence on his end that meant he was being polite. You finished the sentence and changed the subject. You haven't brought it up since. Most things that matter can't be explained to people who don't already understand them. The psychology of month 3 is different in ways you don't notice while they're happening. In month 1, you checked your P&L after every trade. In month 3, you check it once at session's end, and sometimes not until the next morning, and the number affects you less, up or down, than it did 90 days ago. You tell yourself this is discipline, emotional detachment, the holy grail all serious traders talk about. And it is that. It's also something else sitting quiet beside it. The number has stopped being real to you the way it was real in month 1. The first $5, 920 changed your life in a specific material way. The second, $6,400 arrived and you nodded at the email and went back to your charts. The big loss comes in month 4, on a morning when you were right. This is the part that will take longest to process, longer than the money itself. You were right. The trade was right, the analysis was correct, the entry precise, the structure there, and the market did exactly what you said it would. And you were still down $8,200 at the end of it. Because you'd been right 11 consecutive times, and the sizing had crept up in increments small enough that each one felt like confidence rather than accumulation. And by that morning, you were trading 6 contracts where you'd started with 2. When the trade went against you for 4 minutes before turning, those 4 minutes cost $8,200 before the eventual move proved everything you'd identified. You held through it. Because you believed in the trade, the right reason, and because you'd been right 11 times in a row, the wrong reason, and because you had stopped being afraid of large numbers in the way you were afraid of them in week 1, which was neither right nor wrong, it was just a fact about who you'd become while you weren't watching. The trade closed green. $3,100 profit on a $6,000 round trip. You stared at the green number. Then you opened a new chart and looked for the next setup. You didn't write anything in the journal. There's an analyst in a trading Discord you've been in for 2 years, one of the ones with 4 Zone members and a paid tier, and a guy at the top who posts P&L screenshots every Friday. His name is Devin. Devin ignored your questions in the free channel for 11 months, the passive invisibility of someone who gets 40 questions a day and answers 6. In month 5, Devin sends you a direct message. He'd seen your posts. He wants to feature your journey in his newsletter as a case study. You don't respond for 4 days, not because you're busy. When you do respond, you ask for a revenue share on any subscribers the feature drives. You have no idea where that came from. Devin agrees immediately, which tells you the number you named was too low. You don't negotiate further. You're already thinking about the next thing. The thing about a sniper approach, the thing that makes it work, and the thing that will eventually test you, is that it requires being wrong for long stretches without letting the wrongness accumulate into doubt. You can be right 20% of the time and still be profitable if the 20% is large enough and the 80% is controlled. This is mathematically true. It is psychologically brutal in a way the math doesn't capture. You sit for 6 hours and do nothing. You watch the market offer setups that almost qualify and you say no and no and no, and the no starts to feel like failure even when it is discipline. You develop a ritual. Black coffee before the open, no phone for the first hour, charts full screen, one playlist on low, always the same one, built in month 1. It still has a song from an apartment you used to share with 2 other people. A window that faced a parking garage, a white IKEA desk that wobbled on one side. You keep meaning to update the playlist. You don't. Some things become load-bearing before you notice. The account breach almost happens in month 6. You're $100 from the daily loss limit on a Friday when the structure clears and gives back $900 of it. You close the session down $200. Fine. Routine. But you know, in the specific way you know things now, without language, without the step-by-step reasoning that used to accompany decisions, that 40 minutes earlier you were one bad tick from a breach, and a breach means a review, and a review with a 6th month account means questions about the sizing decisions in months 4 and 5. You don't trade the following Monday. You tell yourself it's a planned rest day. You sit at your desk for 3 hours anyway, charts open, playlist on, coffee cooling. You watch the market do exactly what you would have traded. You don't move. The journal entry that night is 3 sentences. The third one is, sometimes the edge is knowing when you're not in the right state. You've written a version of this 6 times before. Each time it's meant something slightly different. This time it means you were afraid, and you named the fear something else, and you didn't know you were doing it until you were already writing. The second funded account comes in month 7. Different firm, higher leverage, larger drawdown allowance. $2 million. The evaluation cost $299 and took 9 days. You remember when $299 felt like a decision. You process the $299 the way you process coffee. You read the 41-page rule document in 40 minutes this time, and you don't stop at the termination clause. 2 accounts, different firms. The same setups, replicated, scaled, the math doubles, the attention splits. You pay cash off a Discord, a junior analyst named Casey, to monitor the second account during off hours. 23, sharp, asks the right questions, the ones you asked in month 1. You answer them with an authority that sounds like experience and is, partly, but is also the confidence of someone who no longer remembers being uncertain. You pay Casey $1,800 a month. It's less than the work is worth. Casey accepts it for the experience and because the alternative is more corporate and less interesting. You know this. You do not raise the rate. You tell yourself you'll revisit it at the 6-month mark. The 6-month mark comes during a drawdown and it doesn't feel like the right time. Month 9. You're clearing $14,000 to $22,000 monthly across both accounts, net of fees. The apartment is the same apartment, but with a standing desk, a monitor array, and blackout curtains that cost $340 and that you bought without checking the price. The IKEA desk with the wobble is in a storage unit 6 blocks away. You haven't thought about this until right now. Your brother calls on a Sunday. He asks how trading is going. You say it's going well. He says that's great. You talk about other things for 20 minutes and hang up, and somewhere in the following 10 minutes you start running math on something you promised yourself you'd never calculate. What it would take to stop needing the prop firms entirely, to trade your own capital, to own the full number and not just the split. You get close to a figure. You close the calculation before it finishes. But you got close. The conversation with Devin about expanding the case study into a course happens over 3 calls across 2 weeks. Devin is smart and slightly slippery in ways you recognize because you have become slightly slippery yourself. And by the end of the 3rd call, you've structured something that pays you a flat fee, plus royalties, plus co-creator credit. A product that will sell to people where you were 14 months ago. Sitting in front of a screen with a wobbling desk, charging $150 to a card with $211 on it. You draft the first lesson yourself. It's on patience, specifically on the value of not trading. The discipline of watching the market offer setups that almost qualify and saying no. You write it in an afternoon and it's good, genuinely good, the kind that's only possible after doing the thing rather than reading about it. You record the audio in 1 take. You don't mention the month 4 loss in the course. Not because it's irrelevant, it's the most relevant thing you learned, but because the arc is cleaner without it, and cleaner arcs sell, and the people buying this are looking for a path, not a warning. The lesson you draw from that loss is size correctly, and don't let a streak make you feel invincible, which is what everyone says, and which is useless until you've dropped $200 on a trade you were right about. You can't sell that. You can only survive it. You add a module called Managing Drawdowns. It is thorough, honest, and technically correct. It is not the same as telling them about that Tuesday morning in month 4. Casey messages you at 11:15 on a Wednesday asking to discuss compensation. You read it and reply, let's schedule a call this week, and don't schedule it for 9 days. When you do, you increase the rate by $200 a month and describe it as a performance review. Casey thanks you and moves on. 4 months later, Casey leaves for a firm paying $4,000. You find a replacement in 48 hours. His name is Jordan. He's 22. He asks the right questions. You pay him $1,800 a month. Month 14. Net income across both accounts, course royalties, and 2 affiliate deals with charting platforms. $219,000 for the year. A number you can hold in your head that still does not feel like what you thought it would feel like from a distance. Not because it isn't enough. It is. It's more than enough. It just doesn't have the texture you expected. You thought there would be a moment, a specific dateable moment, when the thing you'd been working toward arrived and registered as arrival. Instead, the number grew the way things grow in aggregate, incrementally, then all at once, then just continuously. Without ceremony, without a door opening, without a feeling of having crossed from one side of something to the other. You order the same coffee you've ordered for 9 years. You're in a cafe 3 blocks from the apartment, and halfway through it, you set it down and don't pick it up again. You have 18 messages, 3 from Jordan about an alert trigger on account 2, and you handle those first, and then you look at the coffee going cold and you don't think anything specific about it. You leave a tip that would have seemed impossible 14 months ago. You walk back. The charts are already open. The playlist is already on. The market opens in 11 minutes. You wait.